Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Ferguson, and this is Fidesta Ramsey, and this is the next episode of Cocktails and Pajamas. So, welcome this evening. We are glad that you are here for those of you who are watching us live. We're appreciating your presence and the energy that you bring to us and with us every week when you join. If you're new and you want to give a shout out, let us know that you're here joining us. Um, and yeah, I think we're kind of ready to go. And so I don't know if I've shared with the audience or not, but I'm in Philadelphia, and you can hear the thunder. And I actually have my windows open. They were closed for a while, and I have them open because the rain has really kind of subsided. But I've been dealing with some leaking. I'm on the third floor of a walk up, and so my ceiling is the roof, close to the roof, and my the building manager knows about it and it's going to be taken care of. But I have for the last couple hours been running back and forth. I have four leaks. So I'm hoping the roofers will come soon and just replace the roof. And then I realized, you know what, like there are a lot worse problems in the world. And I'm grateful to have a home. And as I say, a roof over my head. I have to laugh a little bit because it's leaking at the moment. In any event, so yeah. So Fidesta, what's been going? Is it raining where you are?
It is. I think we're expected to get 5 to 7 inches of rain. This is, I think, kind of the low effect of Ida coming through. So cozied up, tuckled in. I like rainy days. And my day has been coaching, teaching how to coach, doing an interview with a journalist as it relates to Afghanistan, and my civilian with an opinion views, especially through a psychological lens. And then today was my first day in couples coaching training. So really excited about the juiciness of that and the being a student again. Like I love learning and I'm always a student, but this is like fresh, new, yummy, edge stretching for me. And having my mentor, Jason Gaddis, teaching from his lens, having been a couples coach, then also his wife is joining. And her background is psychotherapy and neuroscience and the science behind why we're going to be learning how to coach this way. So science-backed teachings, kind of a little quiet, juicy spot for me. And then getting to see you, which, as I was saying, is like I'm so happy to be at this part of my day that I get to see you. Yeah, and also hearing for you, right? Like, yes, first world problem, and still takes energy and takes adulting and is a little stressful. So just still wanting to hold, like you had to do something for your own shelter to be in better order.
Yeah.
And it sounds like help is on the way.
And help is on the way.
Yeah, my love. How are you outside of those 4 leaks on a rainy day?
I'm actually doing, I feel like for the last 24 hours, I've gone through a really pretty big shift. And thanks to you and thanks to another friend who really supported me with something that I was putting a lot of pressure on myself about. And I was just like, no, this is not, for whatever reason, this is not the time to start this project. And so I'm feeling clearer about that and a lot better just kind of naming it and naming that I'm in the struggle and allowing you to hold space and just trusting that you're not judging me and that I'm here and that I can just say what I need to say. So at 7:10 on Wednesday, the 1st of September, I think I'm doing pretty well, you know? Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to say is I think the audience knows, I know that you surely know that over the last couple months, there's so much that I have been holding space for and in the midst of, and there's a lot going on. And I just thought, I don't need to add another thing to that list. Um, and I want to do it, and I will get to it when I feel like the time is right, when I feel like I can be successful in it. And that I just kind of need to slow things down a little bit right now because it feels like a lot. And I want to be, and I want to be present for it. And if I can't be present for my own life, what the hell? You know, like if I can't be present for my own life, how can I be present for anyone else, to support them, to be there in whatever capacity?
Yeah, I'm hearing sort of this wisdom of discernment, right? Of like, yes, I could stack this on top of this huge pile and maybe kind of half-ass it or do my best, but maybe not go as deep as I would want to in a project. Or I could actually give myself some grace and not place another thing on top of an already, I'm kind of picturing, a pile or a very full basket, which a lot of people I imagine have right now. So thank you for modeling that place where you flex your no muscle with yourself, right? That's being boundaried with yourself.
Yeah.
Nope, we need more space for this. And it will happen. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's having me think of just how important it is. We throw around the word self-care a lot. And I'm holding this in the realm of like self-regard, right? Being really able to regard yourself from a zooming out and looking at like, what is this being already carrying? And is it kind to add more? Like we all can. I think we all know how to hustle, muscle, and push it. And can we be gentler with ourselves? Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. I think that I remember it was probably maybe 2005. And I had a job which required a lot of me. And and I came down with a sinus infection. So I was off work for a week. My doctor said to me, I know you don't typically take care of yourself in that way, but you really need rest to take care of yourself so this can heal, so you can heal. I was like, okay. And I did. I took 5 days off. I took Monday through Friday off. And I wasn't 100%, but I told myself I was going to be ready to go back the following Monday, and I did. And the sinus infection came back even harder. And I wasn't done with my antibiotic at the time, and that at that time I was taking some pharmaceuticals, and my antibiotic wasn't finished, which should have. I mean, that's a big sign. Like if you're not through the medication, especially something like that, that it's probably not cleared up. Anyway, so I went back to work, and within 2 days I was in bed again. And I was like, okay, I know what I really need to take care of, that I physically can't push my body through something, because your body knows, intuitively we know that in order to heal, to get well, we need rest. It's really that simple. And so I think I learned that pushing through energy from my mother, like that, it's very old school. It's generational, I want to say, for a lot of people, for me especially. And I've learned to do it differently. The hard way. I've had to learn the hard way, but I'm glad that I learned.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I worked, I think, from age 18 till roughly 5 years ago, on film sets, which can really push you into 16, 18-hour days. political campaigns that can push you into 20-hour days, and nonprofits, which can equally push and stretch and pull at what very little you have left, right? So I had this conditioning there, if not from inherited behaviors in my family, but from like what work looked like to me from the very beginning of work, which was, oh, you give everything until you're running on fumes and then you collapse, right? And obviously companies exploit employees that way with the dangling carrot of promotions and all these things. And I remember when I quit that last nonprofit job in the city, at that point I was working 60, maybe even 70-hour weeks. I was the only person handling the finances. I had a director of operations who was supporting, and she was moving, she was having a baby, she was in the middle of a lot of life changes, validly. Wasn't really online when like we were in the middle of an audit. So I was like at the office till 11:30 p.m., taking an Uber home, all those things. When I went to my doctor, and I've shared this before, she was like, you need to quit. Like, if I were you, I'd quit your job. Like, of all the things you're telling me going on in your life, this one seems to be stealing your health. And just that phrase, stealing your health, really caught my attention. And when I quit that job, and this is where sometimes I don't know how much I'm pushing, right? Because like somehow there seems to be more in the tank. I slept almost 2 weeks. Yeah. Mind you, not straight. I didn't wake up in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But I woke up, I ate, I maybe watched a movie, and I fell back asleep for nearly 2 weeks. That's how much in deficit I was, right? It's sort of like when people use credit cards and they get into debt, right? That's how much I had charged on my account, so to speak.
Yeah.
Energetically. And yeah, it was also a hard lesson to learn. Like, I can push that way, and that can be celebrated by others and even encouraged by others for their own advantage. And I can't do that to my body anymore. I'm not willing to. I can't say I can't. I won't.
Right.
Yeah. Mm.
I think of all the people who have high stress jobs and really push themselves to like the nth degree, to the highest limit, and they're nothing but a ball of stress, and there are a lot of health issues going on. And underneath the surface, we really can't see anything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But, they could, high stress can result in all kinds of things, disease and heart disease, and everything, And I don't think we think about those kinds of things, because if we're looking okay on the outside, we must be okay on the inside. And oftentimes that is really not the truth. And so when I hear about people who are, relatively young, under 50, and dying of a heart attack or whatever, I'm like, wow, who was looking after this person? Who was conversing with them and saying, hey, take a little time for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if we're not looking at ourselves, hopefully we have a support system or a loved one or someone who's saying, hey, I want to support you because I love you, and please slow down and take some time for yourself, because living at that high level, the human body, we were not created to live like that. We were just not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's reminding me, I used to work at Sony Pictures ImageWorks years ago, and was a coordinator for a department. So really supporting staff meetings, ordering ice cream, all the things that a coordinator does for a department. And these guys were often working around the clock, mainly because people higher up gave sort of an unrealistic deliverable. And then got the contract they wanted, right? Got the money. And then everyone else was left to scramble to make that deadline. That was the reality of Hollywood at the time, probably now too. And from my point of view, holding a holistic view, if someone came in sick, right, and there's 50 people they're going to be interacting with, we're going to have more people dropping in terms of productivity. And from a place of care, like I was one of those people that was like, yo, you know what? You're sick, go home. Just take the day, take 2 days. Not because I didn't want them there, but because I knew if they rested, they'd be well on Wednesday. And by Wednesday, 10 other people aren't going to be sick too. Like it just makes good sense to keep it that way. And the second piece, I read an article last week that said 750,000 people a year die from overworking. And I think that was globally. I would have to look at the article again, but it was relating it to heart disease and inflammation and immunity and all these ways that cortisol and fatiguing our adrenals and, what they call inflammaging, right, wreak havoc on the system. And I don't think we talk about that enough. Like, why are we working so hard for somebody else? Or if we have our own businesses, then like, is this the vision we had of how we would run our business to run ourselves into the ground? It's an important question that I hope people are asking, especially now with just the layers of complexities everyone is holding. Right? And the details might be different, whether you're in a war zone or you're here or you're in a developing country. But it's like we're already holding so much. Can we gift ourselves with some grace?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's a pretty shocking study.
Yeah.
Like surprising, not surprising, but
right.
Yeah.
So I love that you use the word grace, because I have found for myself that's kind of been in the last week, 5-7 days, I've been using that word a lot for myself. And I'm like, I'm adding that to my list of words for 2021.
Nice. Yeah.
Because I need that. Like I realize that I often gift other people with tons of grace.
Mm-hmm.
I just it's something that I allow. I give it easily, but when it comes to myself, I can really be a hard ass, and I'm like, no, you need and you deserve, and you're worthy of grace, just like everyone else is. So, yeah, and what a beautiful word the word grace is. It's just so pretty. Yeah.
I hope everyone got to hear that. You're worthy and you deserve that grace too.
Yeah.
I feel like that impacted me to be like, oh, I heard that. I'm letting that sink in, because we are really hard on ourselves, especially those of us with perfectionist and or overachiever tendencies, myself included, that can set a high aspirational standard for myself, which is really cool and integrous, and then feel really sad, disappointed that I couldn't reach what was sort of my moonshot anyway. Right? It was meant to at least support me in getting somewhere that's on I'm going to say high road in my world. But we can be really hard on ourselves. And the world is already hard.
It is.
No.
Yeah. Life is hard.
If you're human,
it's hard.
Yeah, if you've got a pulse and you're alive and you're paying any attention, it's already pretty damn hard.
Yeah.
Debbie Ford used to say, life is already hard. Put the goddamn bat down. And I loved that.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah. She had this exercise. I never did it because the last thing I wanted to do was like slap a doll around. But she had this exercise where she asked each of us, when we left the workshop, to go to a toy store and find like a baby doll that looked like us. So maybe brown-eyed, brown-haired, whatever, right? Or for you, I'm guessing blue-eyed, blonde-haired.
Hazel.
Hazel. Okay, I haven't looked into your eyes very deeply yet, but so right, like look for a doll that just resembles you as a kid. And then for a week, the exercise was anytime you had a diminishing thought about yourself, to whack that doll.
To whack it?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yes. So she was creating a somatic experience of what we do on the inside.
Oh.
Right? Like every time you think lowly of yourself, you say something of really poor regard, you have the inner critic or the I should have or I could have or whatever. Her request was to whack the doll. And to see at the end of 7 days, like, when you've got this doll that's all bedraggled and like hanging by its, cotton balls or whatever,
Right.
like now go tell that doll to go live its dreams.
Oh my God.
Like, how's that going to work?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. And I had enough empathy to be like, got it. I'm not whacking a doll, but I understand what you're getting at,
Yeah, well, yeah.
Just to drive home that if we do that to ourselves and we're like, wow, why didn't I pursue my dream? Or why didn't I go on that second date? Or why didn't I do the thing I said I wanted to do? And it's like, well, the self-loathing's not going to get you there.
No.
Impactful.
Yeah.
And speaking of impact.
Yes.
Because I know this is something we were talking about, and I'm noticing how much I've used my voice today. You and I were discussing, just as friends yesterday, the importance of sharing impact, the value of it, and the cost when we don't. So I'm wondering, I just want to throw that out to you, if you want to share anything around that, and we can, volley the ball around what that means to us and why it's actually seeming super important to exercise and practice that.
Yeah. So I'll actually share the experience that I had with a student, which was back in 2006, early 2007. So I think as I will share with the audience that I work part-time for Drexel as a standardized patient, which means I do simulation for the nursing students. And at that time I was working for another university doing the same thing. And I had an encounter with a student, and so we act out the encounter. They do this intake interview. It's to practice their bedside manner, and then we give them feedback live. So during the feedback, I was doing my job, giving her feedback, and unaware that I wasn't sharing anything positive until she said to me, after I was finished, she said, well, have I done anything right? And I literally stopped in my tracks, and I just was like, oh my God. And I said, of course you have. And then I listed the things she had done well, because she had done several things well. And so after the encounter was over, I went immediately to the trainer and to the boss who does the hiring, and I just said, look, this just happened. I explained the situation, and let's watch. I hate watching myself, but let's watch my scenario and the feedback, and then I would really love your support, because I don't want to ever do this again. This has to change. And they were wonderful. They were really supportive around it. And Chris, the trainer, he was just like, so this, he said, none of what you said was incorrect. He said, but what you want to do is you want to couch it so that it softens the constructive. And so not only to get input and feedback from the student, which was it makes me cringe, but also from my boss and my trainer, it was so helpful. And so I'm also the type of person, Fidesta, who I've said this to you, it was yesterday. I said, I'm the type of person who wants people to be direct with her. I need people to be direct, because if someone's not direct, I don't know what's going on. It's very confusing to me. You have to say, Heidi, this is what's going on, or however you frame it, but make sure my attention is focused, that I know that you're talking to me about me and that this is what's going on. Because otherwise it's way too confusing. There are too many. It doesn't feel. What's the word I want to say? It doesn't feel like it's for me. It doesn't feel like that feedback is for me unless you are really direct. Because that has happened in the past when people kind of like beat around the bush and they're like, they share a story and they're telling me the story, and it's about me, but they're not using me, and I'm like, that feels a little sideways. You're muted a little bit.
Probably a lot. I'm hearing like wanting emotional congruence.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
100%. And because I am okay, I'm strong enough, I've done enough work on myself to own my shit, even when it's hard. And even when I don't want to hear it, I'm like, even if I'm, resistant in the moment, trust me, it is something that I will be thinking about for a while. That's just who I am. Words impact me, especially when they're about me. But and the word, whoever's on the other side of the words talking to me, whoever that is giving me feedback or whatever it is, needs to be really direct.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and there's a kind way to do it. Like there's a kind and gentle way to do that. And it can be without judgment. It can be without pointing a finger. It can be without all of that shit, all that people, that kind of people pile on top of it,
all the sideways stuff.
All the sideways stuff. I would say just get to the point, be really clean and clear in your communication, and then it's over. And that also allows for dialogue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean excuses, but dialogue, which is very different than excuses, because I'm not going to come back and say, oh, well, I did it because, no. I want to apologize, and if I feel like dialogue's necessary, then okay, but no, I want to be really clean about my own stuff. Yeah.
I love that. And I love the request for emotional congruency and some level of, I'm going to call it a gentle on-ramp, right? Like in couples coaching and what I've experienced being coached, it's like knowing that when you said kind of couched, I was hearing more like the sandwich, right? Like,
yeah.
Here's what you're doing well. Here's what I appreciate. Here's where I see you having some gifts. Here's where you might want to work, and here's some growth opportunities. But you did really well with X, Y, and Z, right? Like that feels good to us as humans.
Yeah.
And I translate it over to when we have couples coaching, there's starting with appreciation, right? The gentle on-ramp of like, I see you in all the stuff you're doing for the house. I see you in all you're holding right now. I appreciate you for showing up for this, whatever that language is. And then going into, after appreciation, some requests for correction, some feedback, some, sharing impact, but still ending with thank you, right? I think we're tending to each other's nervous systems that way. And that is to me an act of love and care. To make sure that while giving feedback, you're tending to your nervous system, you're tending to their nervous system. And I had an experience many months ago, but it's really stuck with me because a friend was courageous enough to say, hey, something didn't feel right to me yesterday in our connection. And are you open to getting on a call where I can share some feedback? And I feel really vulnerable and a little nervous to ask for this, right? So even just naming that was so disarming because I'm like, yeah, what happened? I want to know, if there's something I've unintentionally done, like I appreciate someone spot checking me there, right? And when we got on the call, she had been struggling the day before, and I think my rescuer, my fixer, came online. And I really went over to her side of the street to be like, let's figure this out, and like, how can I help? And she really just wanted to be seen. She wasn't in let's brainstorm and fix this mode. She was in I'm struggling mode. Whew, talk about sharing impact, right? And in how she did it with kindness, but she did it with honesty. And I agree with you, there can be room for both. And she said, when you rescue me when I'm struggling, I feel like you might not trust that I've got myself and that I'm in need of rescue. And that doesn't have me feeling good. It's like, wow, not only did our bond strengthen to have to, to work through that conversation, I got to lean back and be like, she's got herself. I can actually put less energy there in terms of trying to fix or rescue. And I can actually see her and just let her feel seen. And she got to brave that muscle of setting a healthy boundary with me. And I'll never forget it because it was such a pattern disruption. And it helped me catch when I do that with other friends. It helped me catch when I do that with clients. When I feel the tension that they're feeling and then want to find comfort again versus leaning back and letting them wrestle with it, right? Letting them come to their own epiphanies. It was beneficial beyond even our friendship. And it was very beneficial for our friendship too. But it helped me grow in an area that, frankly, felt mostly like a blind spot. So that to me is the value of sharing impact with kindness, with honesty. Yeah, it was on so many layers helpful. And like you, unless I'm highly triggered, I am really open to hearing what's up for somebody. And even when I'm highly triggered, I'm going to be resistant in the moment and defend myself, but it's sinking in. It's coming through in the days after of like, okay, if that's how someone's experiencing me, like what do I do differently? Right? Yeah. So valuable.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hold also scary.
Yeah, all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wish I could remember exactly the whole piece of information that I was listening. It's either an article I was reading or an interview, and someone was talking about for those who get defensive, quickly get defensive or get defensive kind of like all the time. It's because, I don't want to mess this up. Well, they haven't really done work on themselves if they're getting defensive all the time. But also haven't even begun to tap into a wound that they experienced probably decades ago and has zero to do with the person they're in relationship with.
Oh yeah, 100%. I am behind that. I know for me, when I'm extremely defensive, I am essentially arguing with the past way
Yeah.
more than with the person. I think, for example, when my partner shares feedback and maybe there isn't a gentle on ramp and maybe it's quite like, ah, you know, um, I'm automatically thrown into my scared animal and I feel threatened. And when you're threatened, what do? You defend, you
Right.
self-protect, you try to get out of the trouble you're in, right? And I generally go to a very young place that's fighting for my goodness to be seen.
Yeah.
But what about all this stuff? And what about these things I did? And how come you're picking on me on this thing? When, like, let's say 99 things, making this up.
Right.
I've seen myself do well, and then you're picking on this one thing, and that feels, and I find myself turning into this disempowered, somewhat collapsed young person who's fighting to be seen in my goodness. And I almost have no access to, okay, like this thing really is a big deal to him. Like it seems small to me. And for some reason, it's not small for him. Right? So yeah, there's definitely my experience. I am arguing with the past. I'm trying to have an unmet need from a long time ago met. And often in those scenarios, when I'm defending, there is like a 5-year-old driving the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's sometimes 2 5-year-olds, right?
Yes. Yeah.
There's conflict. And a friend of mine, we were talking about in neuroscience, they kind of use the hand. I don't know if I'll be able to do it here, right? This is sort of the amygdala, the limbic system, the cortex, the prefrontal cortex, right? This is where you want to be because you're a little more resourced and able to be logical and whatever. And we flip our lid and we're like in the animal hindbrain that's like threat, threat response.
Right.
And so we were kind of having this shorthand of like, wouldn't it be fun to have a skit where 2 people are arguing and you're like, okay, they're here, they're good. This one's getting a little, this one's starting, and then it's like, wow, like they're both flipping their lids, right? To be able to be like, while this conversation's happening and all this context is being discussed, here's what's going on. There's 2 scared animals flipping out and attempting to fight for safety. And if we dealt with that level, what's going to make that person feel safe? What's going to make me feel safe? Sometimes it's not about the broccoli, or the dishes or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Does that land?
Oh, does it ever? Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if we could all just like look at our friend or our partner and go, I'm kind of like, this is happening right now. I need a minute. I want to get back to here, but I could also go full flipping my lid and just being in primal threat mode.
Yeah. And then to be with someone who's either done no work or very little work. Wow. Like what to do with that? I don't even know, there's one relationship in my life that I've learned to just simply manage myself so that I can be in relationship with them. And there are times when I have to work harder than other times to love this person. But I do love them. I love this person. And like I said, there are days when it's really challenging. And then there are times when I'm like, okay, I just have more capacity. I have more compassion today. Today's a better day. And And the only thing, and that's, it took me years to figure this out, but the only thing that I can manage is myself. Like, I can't manage this other person. I can't manage anyone else either. I can only manage and take care and navigate me and my feelings and how I tend to operate. And that was a really challenging piece of my work, um, because I couldn't understand. I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean that they're not making me feel a certain way?"
Oof.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, and when I really got it, like really solidly got it in my head that the impact that they have on me is completely in my control. My emotions are my own. My emotions are what I can control. It changed everything. Literally changed everything. And then I could see how when this person who tends to play victim a lot and just kind of says, "Look how you made me feel," or whatever. I'm like, I don't even respond, because for me to try to explain that or send an article, which there's some really good articles from Psychology Today. Believe me, I've looked at them, but I'm just like, I'm not. It's not worth me trying to explain this,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Um, but for me, I was like, oh, I'm so glad that I get this now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really appreciating just recognizing how um, fruitless, for lack of a better word, the external locus of control is. Managing others, getting others to change. Well, if only they did this, then I'd be okay, right? And turning it into the inner. How am I going to choose to relate to this person if they behave this way forevermore? How am I going to show up? Am I going to show up? Am I willing to commit to showing up differently in this situation? I like that because it feels empowering. It feels healthy to choose from that place. I know in my life, I've had to surrender some fantasies of how and who and, growth for others and potentiality. It makes me a good coach to see potential. It doesn't make me a great person to be when I was dating, because my discernment was like, oh, but they could
No,
be this, right? Which I think is common. But to really look at, the law of actuality, what actually is in front of me versus what if. It's like, what is right now? And if this is what it is, always holding that people can learn and grow. But if they choose not to, where do I stand? Right? And like you said, managing our energy, I'm going to add our projections on other people. It's a lot of work.
it's so much work.
Yeah.
It's so much work. And it's even more work if we feel like we can fix them, or if we feel like we can heal.
Mm-hmm.
The only person, and I want to kind of get on my box right now, if people don't mind, but I want to tell women, especially women who are straight and are attracted to men and go in that direction. What I want to say to you is that, number one, it's okay to be single. Nobody expects you to be in a relationship. That has passed. That boat has sailed. Trust me. It's really okay to be single. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't have children. Secondly, you cannot fix a man. We cannot do anyone else's healing for them. We can only heal ourselves. We can only do our own work. And what I find fascinating about, like, even in the midst of my relationship, as I was doing my work and as I was growing in myself, I realized, I was like, I don't even want that.
Yeah.
I don't want, I not only it's not wasn't that I didn't want him, I don't want that. And because my standards are so high, I want someone who can meet me wherever my standards are, or at least is willing to grow to meet my standards.
Mhm.
And trust me, women, ladies, you will know whether whether a man is willing to grow or not. Doesn't take a lot of it. It's not doesn't take a brain surgery to figure that out. Trust me, you will know whether your man is willing to grow, willing to do the work, or not. And then the last thing I want to talk about is potentiality. Fuck it. Fuck potentiality, because you can't, you don't know someone. I think a lot of us think, oh, they have potential. She has potential. That might be true, but we don't know a person's potential. And just because everyone has potential, but you can't put all of your eggs in that basket and think that because he's got potential, he's workable, he's trainable, he's this, he's that. No, stay focused on yourself, healing and working yourself, because that's the literally the only thing you have control over. I've been there. I'm still working on myself. I know what I'm talking about. All right, I'm off the box.
And I love your passion about this. It feels like fierce love. It feels like care. It feels like naming wisdom that was hard earned for you so that others may be able to shave a few years off of that excursion.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, right? Like, particularly for us empaths, highly sensitives and intuitives, we can go, oh, I could see where this person could absolutely shine. And yes, have latent potentials, right, that are dormant. And what I have learned from my experiences is if a man does not do his work and doesn't believe in himself and doesn't feel good enough, those latent potentials will remain dormant.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about lifting that. You can pour faith as an ally, but they have to step forward and step up for sure. And that goes for any relationship, right? Where two people want to be having a shared union of values, be an energetic match, be growing together. Not everyone wants a growth-minded relationship.
Right.
Some people are totally cool with like, this is what we're going to do for decades to come, and it's fine and it's cool. But for those who are, I wish I could make dating questions that are like, how growth-minded are you? How much have you worked on your shadow? Like, what would your ex say was the biggest challenge with you? I want to make that deck of cards.
We talked about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, let's not talk about how we both like jazz. I mean, fine, but
right.
You're not figuring out how to, can this person replicate a healthy relationship with you? Do they have the tools? Or are they willing to learn the tools? And rarely has it been modeled well to us. So I think a lot of us are without the tools.
Yeah.
And I know from what I understand of couples coaching and individual coaching, two willing partners, anything's possible.
Right.
Really. Because they are hopefully, presupposing that we can create what we want to create. We can have what we want to have. It's up to us. We've got to be able to do this work. This is the download I was getting in couples coaching today of it's about personal responsibility as a team.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that includes friendships, right? I had a friendship where I kept reaching out and I kept reaching out. And for whatever reasons, this beloved friend of mine just wasn't available, and months passed and a year passed. And I think we're getting into maybe 2 years-ish. And there's just a part of me that's like, man, I really love this human, and they're not mirroring the level of commitment I like from my friends. And again, I have friends from childhood that maybe we talk every 3 months or something, but when years pass, like that feels disconnecting and distancing to me.
Yeah.
And I think when I was younger, I would have bemoaned it and kept reaching out and kept plucking away and trying to figure it out and like, let's meet. And this time it's like, okay, seeing the level of commitment that's available, no judgment, throwing no shade at anyone, but just again, the law of actuality is one of my greatest teachers because I'm great at looking at potential.
Me too.
Mhm.
Yeah, me too. With men and so with romantic relationships as well as friendships. Yeah.
Yeah, look at what could happen if we both stepped forward.
Right. Right. And I'm curious because I think I've shared my, and I'm happy to share it again, but I'm curious how you, what am I asking here? I'm curious from your perspective how you have learned to navigate that and find your people, find your circle.
To navigate sort of the people
Who
who
you want in your, like, who are your first chairs? Like, how do you navigate and who do you know for sure?
Mhm.
Because you know their levels, right? We've talked
Yeah.
about the levels of relationships, and I'm just curious to hear from you how you have created your circles and how you have navigated and figure out who is who are in who's in your inner circle.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful question. I think it's multi-layered in that one piece is consistency, right? Bearing witness to each other's lives is a really beautiful honor to me. And it's something that does build trust and intimacy for me. Um, Layered onto that is like a shared love or passion or value. So I have my songwriting circle of people I really bonded with over months, if not years, of sharing our music, writing together, um, helping each other feel encouraged to share, even like to risk more emotionally, to share more vulnerably within that community. And then the relationship community, growth minded, like hearted, doing the work, bringing in the messy stuff, owning where they feel like imposters, owning where they feel struggle. Um, Bonds can be built quite quickly if there's depths.
Right.
And then the third piece I would hold as like people I've grown up with, right? We might not connect every week or every month, even. And like if I've known you since we were 11, that can also be a layer of knowing each other and having a bond that doesn't require as much tending as a new friendship might. But if I think of the thread between those different groups that become part of my first chairs, I'm going to say that they risk emotionally. They show up risking and they continue to stretch themselves to risk even more, to get even more naked, to get even more attuned to themselves and to trust even more in sharing it. Right. So it's no small thing to have friends like that. Yeah. And I don't have, much like you, I don't have the tolerance for surface talk. It doesn't appeal to me. It's, not why I incarnated, frankly. I'm not trying to blow my incarnation on small talk.
Right.
For me, there's no juice. If anything, it's depleting. So I'm quick to detour people into something I think is juicy and see if they're willing to play.
Same.
And if they're not, that's okay. Like then we might just not have great conversations, and those even sort of orbit out organically. Yeah. Thank you. That's a juicy question. Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit? Maybe there's overlaps, but like a little bit of how you've, because I feel like a lot of people are looking for their first chairs right now.
I know that there are a lot of people looking just for friendships. I was listening to So right now I have two favorite podcasts. I sent you a oh my God. I really hope you listen to it because
I will.
there's a portion in there which, first of all, it's okay. So let me just backtrack. So for those of you who don't know me well enough to know that I love Glennon Doyle, and I'm a big fan of Glennon and Abby as a couple. They're hilarious and they're very real and raw and authentic and all the things. And Glennon has a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things. She does it with her sister, who's her business partner. Her sister's a lawyer, and her sister does all the law stuff for Together Rising, their nonprofit. And then Abby has been a guest a couple times, and I think she's going to be a regular. So it's a lot of fun to listen to the three of them together because they talk a lot about the patriarchy, feminism, gender roles. I mean, it's really juicy, good stuff. So anyway, I was listening. I've been listening to, like, going back and listening to many of them because they're just so full of a lot of good stuff. So anyway, my other favorite one is armchair. Oh, what's it called? Armchair Expert. So it's Dax Shepard. I don't know if you know who Dax Shepard. He's married to Kristen Bell. Okay, so he's married to Kristen Bell, and his podcast partner her name is Monica. Anyway, it's this very interesting relationship. So every once in a while, he asks Monica and Kristen to take over, and they turn their podcast into what is called we are supported by, no, that's not true. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, but they interview women. So women who are leaders in the community and not necessarily celebrities or anything, but women who have really made an impact. So anyway, the reason I'm saying this is because I'm really attracted to women-led storytelling and conversations and whatnot, because I'm just drawn to that. And so one of the things that Abby and Glennon and her sister were talking about is that many women are looking for, like, they have this call, they have a phone number where you can call in and just comment on the podcast, and women are asking, like, how do you make friends? And I was just like, what a simple question that is, because it's a really simple question, but it's not a question with a simple answer, right? And so the reason I feel like I've kind of been but anyway, I'm getting to a point here, which is that from my own personal experience, because I've done a lot of work on myself with various therapists and core energetics, and I've dabbled in a lot of different kind of modalities and kind of put them all together. And have grown, and the tentacles have been many, lots of tentacles, which is really exciting because it's led me to different communities and different women and whatnot. And I will say that because of that, and I'll be 58 in November. So for me, it's been a long journey of decades and decades and decades of, is this a person that I can be in relationship? Is this someone that I would like to, bring into my circle? Is this someone? And it's literally taken a lifetime to find my circle of women that I want to be in relationship with. And I have tested the waters like you have. Do they want to play in my sandbox if I go this deep? Do they want to engage in that conversation, right? That kind of thing. And so, and I'm the kind of person who gives people a lot of chances, almost to a fault. And when I'm done, I'm done. Like, I'm really clear, like, that's it. We're no more. But I have a lot of grace for people, and I give them a lot of space in that. And so I guess what I want to say to the women, to our audience who's watching, who who might be looking for friendship or are feeling lonely or whatever, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And whatever your boundaries are, whatever your line is, be really clear about that. Know that for yourself, so that you know how far you want to go, how far you want to reach, and what's okay for them, like how much they can bring, how much you can bring. Um, yeah, and most importantly, trust yourself. Trust yourself when you're doing this, because it is work. It takes work for people to show up. Um, and like as far as our friendship goes, Foresta, we both have talked a lot about consistency, and I would say for me, for us, that's for us like the crux. That's the key. Like we continually show up, not only every week, but sometimes a couple times a week, depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're more and more need for support, and that's okay.
Oh, sometimes we send the flare signals on not a Wednesday, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And sometimes we need to like really wave them bigger, and then sometimes not so big and whatever, and that's okay. But know who like be really clear about and trusting yourself about who your people are. Who you know will consistently show up and be there for you. And you have to be just as in it and just as committed, and just to say, I'm there too as they are. I wouldn't even say it's 50-50. I would say it's 100-100 for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the right equation for partnership and friendship. So
Yeah.
I think I want to add to that just patience and faith, because I know how it feels when you're in the drought of friendship, being like, man, when I moved to LA, being like, I'm gonna make friends. And like you said, it takes time, it takes nurturing, it takes, farming the land, basically, right? You plant a seed over here, you plant a seed over here, you plant a seed, you water them, consistency, you make sure they get sunlight, and you see which ones grow. So there's some uncertainty in that equation, right? Some people are going to flake, some people are not going to be game for your amazing frequency, whatever that is. And it doesn't happen overnight. I know, having gone to middle school and high school with a lot of people and having had best friends, like once I went out in the world, it's like I wanted that depth of connection like ASAP. And that for some of us took easily a year of seeing each other every week or whatever.
Right.
To have faith and patience with the process. And as you said, show up 100% and create consistency and show your commitment, right? It's also trust building. Relationship building is all about trust building.
Yeah.
You don't do that if you happen to brunch with someone once every, 14 weeks or something.
Right.
That's a whole chunk of their life. No, I'm told that can happen when you've really been friends for a long time. You can pick up where you left off. But if you're trying to build new friendships, be okay with the fact that it's work and that it will bear fruit in having support, being witnessed, being able to give to another in that way. What an honor, right? Yeah.
And also, be aware, have enough grace that there are going to be times when it's messy, and times where you feel disconnected, and times where the conversation is a little crunchy, and trust yourself that you're going to continue to show up. Trust the other person that they're going to continue to show up. There's a part of me that wishes someone was on tonight, but I think we'll try to have her on next week. But because we've talked a lot about this, but like Foresta is saying, consistency and trust are the two key pieces of this puzzle. And if I can find the Jeff Brown quote, I will put it in the comments. It's phenomenal. It's really, really good, because it talks about when friendships get more and more intimate and more intense, that's when things can kind of blow up. And so we have an opportunity. We can either flee or we can come back together. There's an opportunity there. And so what I would say, not that we've had any kind of upset or anything, but we've had, there've been some times when we're like, well, and we have made the choice to come together, which is a really beautiful thing. And I have another friend that has been a little more contentious, but it's been many times, but we have made the choice, committed to our friendship, where we will I just trust that she's going to come back, and she does, and she trusts that I'm going to come back, and I do. And so yeah, I feel like we've gone on a little bit over, but I just feel it was really important to say these things.
Yeah, and I think that I would like to continue that conversation, because there's probably more to unpack in what it takes to foster any relationship, right?
Yeah.
I think I know myself when I was younger had a blind spot there as to what it really takes, right? It's sort of like when you see a great guitarist on stage and you're like, wow, he's amazing. You don't know 6 hours a day for 12 years that he's practiced that muscle.
Right.
To make it look so deceptively easy.
Right.
Friendships take work and partnerships take work. And yeah, I think there's more there. So I'm just holding that. And honoring time, I shall get my and cards.
Yes, please get your and yes.
And I just want to add, if anyone has a question, a comment, an observation, if something's resonating for you, please, please, please let us see you. Share in the comments. We will respond. It's a really beautiful thing to help serve here and to know that we can support you. So if you're feeling alone, you struggle, if you're feeling great, like please feel free to show up and be seen. It's really cool to commune with you in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, my love, are you ready?
I'm ready.
There's a lot.
Yes.
I spilled a few. It's okay. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell me when to stop.
Now.
Ooh, this is cute. Okay. How do you want others to describe our relationship?
That's such a great question, right? Authentic, heart-centered, full, real, eye-opening, curious, learning. Oh my God, all of that. And humor.
Yes.
Oh my God, and humor. Yes. And how would you like for others to describe our friendship?
Well, everything you said, so I won't repeat those. Really rich, nourishing, soothing, supportive, honest, and playful, accepting, loving. And I notice for us, because we share that empathic quality, attuning, being able to attune to each other in the moment. What a gift.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm. Mm. My heart feels hugged. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And thank you to everyone joining us. Again, just really appreciating that you're here, appreciating that you want to see authentic connection models. And let us know if there's anything you got out of this or any questions.
Good night.
Night.